The following episode of the Maui Chamber of Commerce's Business Matters was originally broadcast on June 27th, 2023.
It's time now for Business Matters, brought to you by Mokulele Airlines. Now here's your host, Pam Tumpab. Good morning, Pam.
Hey, good morning, Gary. How are you?
I'm very good.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. Well, it's a beautiful day here in Maui. I want to welcome everybody to the Business Matters radio show. I'm Pamela Tumpop, president of the Maui Chamber of Commerce and your MC. Today we're going to talk with Senator Lynn DeCoite about access deer and economic development opportunities. We're going to hear an update on Maui Brewing Company and the restaurant industry from Garrett Marrero. And we're going to learn more about approved freight forwarders, as shipping to Hawaii is always something that's on every business's mind. But we're going to begin with Senator Lynn Pualani DeCoite, who was appointed by Governor David Ige in 2021 to fill the Hawaii State Senate District vacancy. She had been elected she's been elected now to continue that seat in 2022, but previously served as a member of the Hawaii House of Representatives, representing District 13, and was serving her fourth term when she was appointed to the Senate. She has been a strong and active advocate for businesses and now heads a very important Senate committee on energy, economic development, and tourism. Good morning, Lynn, and welcome. We just lost Lynn. Lynn is at the airport, by the way. So we're going to check to see if she calls. I'm sure she's going to call right back in.
There she is.
Oh, we got her. Okay, fantastic. Good morning, Lynn. I was just giving your intro, and right then it dropped. How are you?
Morning. How's it going?
Good. So glad to have you on the show again.
Happy to be here.
So you and I are both attending a meeting later today on access deer, and given your role as the chair of the Senate Committee on Energy, Economic Development, Tourism, I was just telling everybody what a great job you've done in this new role. What are your thoughts on looking at and utilizing access deer as an economic development opportunity?
Well, our role is when it comes to business and come to a food source, is I don't believe that we should be wasting a food source. In regard to the overpopulation of access deer, you already have those individuals and companies that have adjusted as a business, which has been lucrative at some point, at the same time addressing the problem of overpopulation and impacts that have destroyed farmlands, ranchlands, people's personal properties and vehicles. So what you want to really do in our role is, at this point, is try to take a problem and turn it into something that can address the issue. So in this case, I've worked closely with DLNR, provided them the resources to address this problem.
Right. That was such an important bill this year. I know we talked about it before, but if you can just maybe briefly mention how that's going to help this year.
So are we referring to the relay donation?
Yeah, yes.
Hi, Pam. Sorry, you cut up. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah. So I was referring to what they're looking to do with the large landowners for those who are culling deer.
So what they're trying to do is, whether it be large landowners or small landowners, is to come up with a program to incentivize having to manage deer population. In this case, DLNR has come up with a program that will work with the landowners, those that were willing to work with them, to try and manage those amount of deer and incentivize it with a stipend. And just trying to be clear, this is not a bounty. This is a stipend on reimbursement to help offset with what's happened on deer impacts.
Yeah, that's going to be a big help, especially I think for some of the large folks. And I know we're going to be talking today about how do we help not just the large landowners but the smaller landowners, and how do we move forward. And you've been a staunch advocate in helping us do this throughout the process. So I want to thank you for the tremendous work that you did this year at the legislature to get some funds to help us offset the costs so that we're bringing down the population size. But you've been working on so many other economic development themes in your new role. And so one of the things that I know that you see is a great opportunity in the film industry, as well as destination management. But I want to let's take those separately, because they're combined, but they're also different. I think the film industry can really also help us with our new messaging. But let's talk about what you see as big opportunities in the film industry.
So Pam, I sorry about the background noise, but I believe you're wanting to address the film industry and what has taken place under economic development. Sorry.
That's okay. So, yes, that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to, it has been about making sure families are not priced out of paradise. And the film industry has, I feel, have not been looked at closer. For those that are wanting the higher paying jobs, those that are wanting to also use that as a mechanism to literally tell the story, whether it be the story of how Hawaii is, not to overburden ourselves with tourism, and more so to address tourism in a responsible way. We've had many issues with impact of our natural resources, of our water resources, of our roads. You take East Maui, for example. East Maui has been heavily burdened with tourists. Destination management has played a huge role in these areas that the communities felt that they wanted to prioritize. It has literally helped us as a tool and mechanism to see how we can utilize something like a reservation system in Wainapa and gauge that how much is enough that will impact those areas and allow for the community to prioritize the need, and again address the issue of how do we be responsible and how do we also try to create a balance between our communities and tourism. As you know, tourism is our number one driver. So I look at the film industry that we have hired many of our local people, and I want it to be focused more on our local people having that opportunity for the high-paying jobs. And it's not just a stage side. I'm talking to many that have moved up from stage handlers all the way up to positions in directors and producers and water sports experts. I think these are the types of jobs that our local people have an opportunity to have. And this is how you keep them here in Hawaii, where the host culture and those that have been born and raised do not have to be priced out of paradise. And, I want to change that focus as the chair of EET to make sure we have provided this opportunity. I just got back from Las Vegas from CNHA, Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, which really at this point our marks have shown in the data that the bulk of our Native Hawaiians have moved to Las Vegas because of opportunity and being able to afford to live in an area and not have to work 2 or 3 jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really glad to know. I was glad to see that they were doing a conference there this year. I thought that's a brilliant idea to start reaching out and trying to bring Kama'aina home. But I do love the film industry, and we've always been there's so much creativity in Hawaii. And, we've often helped other people produce their films here, but like you said, really changing the roles, giving opportunities to tell our stories, I think is really exciting. And to have the directors and the producers be from here. Eric Gilliam and others have done movies, and I just think it's fun to see not only us gain the extreme ROI that we can get from creating films here, even when other productions come in. But when they come in, they hire their folks on island to help with their productions, and then we are training our people to do really high-level productions as well. So it's an exciting industry, something we've supported for a while, and I'm glad to see your strong support of that. And I appreciate you talking about destination management and the work that's being done there. I think we really need to continue that messaging and getting that out, and that renaissance Can you, I know that the state talked about in destination management, there were multiple bills that looked at these, whether it was a pass or, park impact fees that would be passed on to visitors. Where do you see that going in next year's session?
So I'm looking at it as I believe that bill will probably be front and center. As you know, you travel, many of us travel. There are fees that are incurred as we visit many different areas of parks, such as Yosemite Park. And I spent some time in South Africa a few weeks ago on a family trip. And, you walk into Kruger National Park, there's fees at every corner that you turn. These are used to help with the upgrades and keep of those areas. And I see that should be the same here in Hawaii. The people are bearing the burden of costs on their own natural resources that are being impacted. I've talked to many visitors. They don't have a problem paying, and they feel that in order for us to keep Hawaii as pristine and make sure those resources are protected, that they don't have a problem. The issue was within the bill was to figure out how are they going to execute those funds with the funds that they already have sitting in the coffer. And aside from the fact, we need to look at all of these situations that are going on, impacts. Look at Hanauma Bay. Hanauma Bay will also be implementing somewhat of a reservation system. They want to do this statewide, and I think these visitor fee impacts are warranted so that the message being sent is that we care about our islands and our resources, and that somebody should be paying if they're utilizing or visiting those areas. And, the data have shown us that many of the visitors have no problem paying for it.
Right. Yeah, I thought the fees were very reasonable, and even, there was discussion of like a $50 statewide pass, and a lot of people I talked to said, if they were coming and going to multiple islands, that would be a no-brainer, or if they thought they were coming back if they were coming back a second time in the year, it just seemed, they just thought that seemed very reasonable.
I think it is. And again, it'll be up to the legislature next year as the bills will move past. People are and that's the beauty of legislature and providing testimony is that, we need to listen to the people and what they're looking at because they're boots on the ground. These are the very individuals that are residents here in Hawaii, and they see what's happening, and it's our job to hear both sides of what will be the benefits, what's the pros and cons, and how we can legislate to make sure the impacts within those districts are supported by their representatives and senators and their council people. If we don't do it, who else will? So I believe in the community and the community's recommendations and their advice since they are, right at the forefront.
Yeah, it's really important, and I think that through the DMAP process and some of the other things happening, we're getting a broadened voice, and it's so important in our planning, and I think we're going to see this, don't you? I'm pretty sure something will pass next year that we can, figure out a way to recapture some money from our visitors who visit these precious places to help support the management. I know there was different versions, so between the versions it seemed it just didn't happen this year, but I'm guessing I really think it's probably going to happen next year because we've done so great at Wainapa Napa, and you mentioned Hanauma Bay and others.
And at the end of the day, we need to look at those that are successful. Why reinvent the wheel? Utilize something that works for us. This is the beauty of our interim when the work really begins as we outreach our communities. And this is, we've been talking about this during the interim on how we do work with the impact fees. And we have briefings, we have conferences and hearings. We meet with the communities. We've had DMAP go out to the east side of Maui. They played a major role in hearing and listening to the people. Let's not forget the RFP within HA has also been awarded, and there is a DMAP destination management component in there also that CMHA has been a part of. The oversight, again, will be HTA, making sure this is not just a blank check that goes out. And, the community should be more involved. because, like I said, they'll have a huge say as to how we prioritize legislation going forward. So I urge and hope that people will get involved because, things can change with their voice and how they set priorities going forward.
I think it's amazing, and I really appreciate the work you're doing on that. I also want to say, and I did share earlier, you've always been a staunch champion for small business, and I really want to thank you for hosting the statewide Hawaii SBA Awards this year in early May. When we came to the Capitol, it was like the day before the final session, and I know how crazy it was. But I truly appreciate you hosting this year's winners of the SBA Awards, and bringing all of the senators together who had winners in their district to honor them and recognize them at the state level.
No, Pam, the thanks goes to everybody. It was a group effort. The Maui Chamber of Commerce played a huge role, as well as the SBA. Part of serving as a chair of Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism is also acknowledging that these businesses that have struggled through our pandemic often need help. And, we've had major issues that come about, but when times get rough, we turn to these businesses to help our schools, to help our kids with sports, to help all our nonprofits. And these are the people that step up, and when they need help, we also need to be there to support them. So it was an honor to host the awards on Oahu, and like my colleagues, they're very supportive of businesses also. We know they are the backbone of our state, and we're there to help them because they are small business, their families, they're there for our community, and they're ingrained and committed to serving our community as well. So thank you for that privilege and honor to help host it at the state capitol this year, and I look forward to doing it again next year.
Well, we would love to have you do it. And thank you so much for that. And it was really just a great treasure, because when you and I first talked, this is one of the things that I really admire about you, is that you always take a step back on opportunities and look at how you can broaden them. And so when we were talking about, doing a program to recognize the winners at the state level, to have you bring in all of your colleagues, it was so fun to see, and the interplay between you and your colleagues, and recognizing these businesses. And of course, I think everybody was saying their island is the best. We'll just end with, we're very proud of every county in Hawaii. But it was a lot of fun. But what was remarkable is sometimes we see people just say, okay, well, if this is an opportunity I can do, then they just sort of do it in-house, and you really brought everybody in and made it meaningful and really connected even some of these small businesses with their legislators that maybe they don't. Some of them had great connections, and some of them, were making connections that day, because you reached out across the board and involved everybody to bring in that sense of community. And I thought that was such a tremendous ceremony. Thank you so much for doing that. Well, I know you're at the airport.
I'm so sorry, Pam.
It's all right. No worries. We're so glad. But actually, we've had very clear. It's been very clear for a good part of our discussion. Is there any other sort of burgeoning thing you want to mention before you head to Maui, in terms of a economic opportunity or something to look for next year in the session?
Well, as you know, the hottest topic going has been beer. It has been some of our areas of safety, upcountry, Maui, roads, and most of that has been impactful by deer. There's been a lot of stuff and funding coming down to help. As you said, the meeting that we're going to have today, I think it'll give us an opportunity to see where the task force has been. We do know that on the state side, we provided just about every amount of funding, resources, the departments that also have outreached out. Again, take a look at some of the budget highlights. Active deer mitigation, we put about $6 million something. That's not including last year's infusion. But I'm hoping that the community will, if they have any questions, to contact Eleanor Lance Silva, who also has offered up as we work together to open up these areas, so that the community can also help that is wanting to help. But at the end of the day, people just get involved and call our office if you folks have any questions. We can help address them, and I look forward to seeing everybody up country today and some of the visits that we're actually making in the area.
Absolutely. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited that you're coming on island. I will, whether it's via Zoom or in person, I will see you one way or the other today. But look forward to seeing you later today. And thank you so much for all you do. And I truly appreciate your updates here on Business Matters.
Sounds good. Same here, Pam. Thank you so much. You take care.
Thank you, Lynn. You too. Aloha.
Okay. Aloha. Bye-bye.
Bye. We're going to be right back after we hear from our sponsor, Mokulele Airlines.
Mokulele Airlines operates the largest commuter airline hub in the country, right here in Kahului. Fly Mokulele from Kahului to Molokai, Lanai, Hana, Waimea, Kona, and now Hilo. Mokulele also operates the only flights between Kapalua and Honolulu. There is never a middle seat on Mokulele, and every seat has a window and aisle. Visit mokuleleairlines.com and take your next flight from the newly renovated Mokulele Terminal.
Welcome back to Business Matters. Pam, I'm going to go give Garrett a call, so go ahead and introduce him.
Okay, I'll go ahead and introduce him. Thanks so much. So our next guest is Garrett Marrero, who co-founded Maui Brewing Company in 2005. He has made it a successful regional craft brewery and Hawaii's largest independent craft brewer. Under his leadership, Maui Brewing Company has grown from a 7-barrel brew pub with 32 employees to a brewery with 4 restaurant locations across Maui and Oahu. Maui Brewing Company recently completed the acquisition of Modern Times Beer and Coffee in San Diego, California, and formed Craft Ohana to bring all of its organizations together. Garrett has also gone above and beyond with efforts to be more sustainable and protect the environment, and many of us know his tremendous efforts during COVID-19 when he came up with hand sanitizer to help the many businesses and residents who needed to access hand sanitizer at a time where it was tough to get. So we are thrilled to have Garrett on, representing not only Maui Brewing Company and his many companies, but also the restaurant industry, giving us an update about where he sees the restaurant industry going this year and into the future. Aloha, it's great. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Always nice to start the day with a friend. So.
That's so true. Thank you. Where are you these days? Are you on Maui?
Yes, indeed. Always nice to be back. My role keeps me moving around quite a bit, as you know. So, but I've nice to be back for a couple more weeks and hang out with my dog and spend time with my team. So.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we were just talking as I was introducing you about the acquisition of Modern Times Beer and Coffee in San Diego. Tell us a little bit. I mean, you are on fire as you've been expanding your company. Tell us a little bit about what you've been up to.
Yeah, sure. Craft Ohana was formed as essentially as a platform, to continue the growth of Maui Brewing, but also recognize that in that growth there may be opportunities to grow through acquisition as well. During COVID, it was. We all spent a lot of time thinking about what the after COVID would look like, the post-COVID world. And, to be honest, I think many of us know that I was living in a post-COVID world while we were still shut down here in Hawaii. And what I mean by that is, while we had to deal with what the ramifications of what the government was doing here, there was nothing we could really do about it other than, think about how the future looked for us. And for us, we said we don't want to survive coming out of COVID. We want to thrive. And so we made the conscious decision to decide that we were going to have to start brewing on the mainland in order to, grow Maui Brewing Company. We had 2 choices. It was grow or shrink. Both of them viable, but it meant, both had pros and cons. Shrinking meant less teammates here in Hawaii and less exposure to the world for our beer. So we decided to grow, and we put it out into the ether that we were going to look to acquire a brewery or potentially even be acquired by a strategic partner. And Modern Times came up as an opportunity in my hometown of San Diego. So, kind of crazy, but I've known Modern Times since their beginning back in 2013. In fact, we're actually going back in my next trip is to go to San Diego and celebrate with the team, and then another party for the public, the 10-year anniversary of Modern Times. So,
wow.
We've been followers of their beer and big fans of their brand for a long time, and it was just kismet that we were able to come together, and now we're producing Maui Brewing at Modern Times, some limited releases to start out as we continue to grow the capacity there, and continuing on with the Modern Times brand in its full force. So.
That's spectacular. So,
yeah.
And I'm sure that bringing Maui Brewing and producing Maui Brewing there as well as continuing Modern Time, that they must have great capacity, but also will tremendously help with your mainland distribution, and that really changes a lot of your dynamics.
It does, yeah. It certainly does help. And now, I'm 44 now. I was 26 when we started, and admittedly a bit of a cowboy at times back then. Some would argue still now, but back then it was. I'm often criticized. They're like, "Oh, you always said you'd never brew on the mainland," and while I may have said that a few times, in my, if you really got me thinking about it, what my issues were with brands that purport to be from here when they're not from here.
Right.
And when I mean from, I mean actually made. So, the vast majority of our main competitors' beers are still being brought in from the mainland, despite having a brewery on Big Island. So that's okay. There's nothing inherently wrong with that. What's wrong is not being completely transparent with your customer so that they have the information to make the choice. So this is why we're talking about where our beer is produced. This is why we're putting it on the can where the beer is produced. We're not confusing you with a bunch of cities and states. We're just saying, no, this one's made in this particular city or state. And that's because we believe in the transparency and the integrity of craft beer. But it absolutely does help. I remember a world pre-COVID, this is early on when we started out shipping to the mainland, maybe 08, 09, we would pay $2,500 to $3,000 for a 40-foot container to ship to the mainland refrigerated.
Right.
That same container during COVID was $16,000. And now has dripped back down to the $9,500 to $10,000 range. So, the question wasn't, could we continue to produce here? Of course we can. You just won't sell any at the price you need to sell it at in order to stay competitive. So, this eliminates that shipping component. And let's be honest, anybody who does any shipping knows that it's not just price, it's availability of a container. So while you might have your shipment ready to go, there may not be a container available for you to ship it in. And then sometimes labor at the dock, you can't get it off the boat. So, we had a container once sit for several months in transit from Hawaii to the mainland because of oversight and just mistakes all along the way. And so we ended up having to dump that beer. But, you can't have that in this world. So, we did make the conscious decision to start producing in the mainland for all of the benefits it does bring to not only our brands, but our business. And when we say our business, that means our teammates as well.
Yeah. And, it really is the way of, starting a business in a small island community. So many companies, even so many of our locally made, they started out locally made companies, and we have the Made in Maui County Festival where we recognize the 51% valuation in Hawaii. But as they grow, we see many companies like Rapoli and there's been even Ali'ikula Lavender Farm. People have to outsource the production when they hit a certain scale. And it, just because of as you point out, the cost and the work production, and it still has the essence here. It's still been created here. So I love that you're saying, look, we can still grow and succeed. We can still be, we're still a Maui-grown company, and we're being very clear with the consumer about where it's brewed. And so it's not like we're trying to pretend that it's all still made here, but we're being very clear about where it's brewed. But, the essence and where we started and where we're still doing brewing and we still have other operations is still based in Maui. And I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and 100% of our brand, Maui Brewing side, is still produced here in Hawaii. So Maui Kupu Spirits, Maui Hard Seltzer, our island sodas are all 100% produced in Hawaii for Hawaii. And, we will always be transparent about that. Now, I'm not going to say I will never import beverages because as I learned during COVID with mechanical issues and I couldn't get parts and whatever, there may be a time where some catastrophic failure requires us to bring something in. But talking with the team, I'm like, all right, if we ever have to do that, we need to post about it. We need to make sure everybody knows the why this is happening because it's not the norm. And, it's not something that we aim to do. So, for us, we always want to make sure that we're, completely transparent. And to your earlier point, yes, at a certain point when you grow, you have to make choices. I don't think you necessarily have to move production or anything like that, but you do have to make that choice. And, pre-COVID, we were doing so well in Hawaii, as we still are, and continuing to grow. And we saw a world that was like, well, maybe we only need to sell in like Hawaii and maybe California, maybe not even sell in the mainland because, everything was so good for us here and we could stay, as they say, lean and mean. Small and nimble is not a bad thing. That would, of course, limit our growth, but it provided certain other benefits as well. And the problem we found out, as many did during COVID, when you lose 90% of your market overnight, in terms of tourism, you end up realizing you can't put all your eggs in one basket, and you need to be able to insulate yourself from the next. I hate to say it, but the next pandemic or the next disaster. So I think that made us make the decision that we needed to diversify outside of one state.
Yeah, and that's. I'm glad that you're sharing this because, one, you've always been so careful and thoughtful on how you are making your decisions, and I love that you're sharing the why behind it because, again, we know, those of us who live here our whole lives or grew up here, there's been many other disasters that shut down tourism or brought the numbers of tourism or had less travelers coming. Not shut down completely. COVID was, a real eye-opener. But there's been many other times when that economic engine has been down for a great period of time, like 9/11, when we weren't shut down, but still a challenge, or the Great Recession. So we know that when other economic or man-made disasters or natural disasters happen, we know that that's going to happen in the future. So COVID was a really good eye-opener to say, okay, now I've had a really good reminder. This is going to keep happening at some level to what degree is questionable, but what does that mean for the future of my business? And in your case, I think very
my responsibility beyond being to, of course, the community, the environment and such, my ultimate responsibility is to my teammates and their families, so that count on us for their paychecks and their benefits. So, we have to make conscious decisions on how we move forward to protect the business, which by definition means protecting those very teammates. So, it's always top of mind.
Diversification. The more diverse we have, that gives us those options. Like you say, small, lean, and mean, can work as well. But it's also nice to have that diversification to shoulder different types of challenges.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, speaking of challenges, one of the challenges I face every day, and I know you do as well, I'm talking to people every single day about worker shortages. And, of course, in restaurants and retail, we're really hearing the challenges there where it comes to customer service. Tell us a little bit about how you folks are tackling that and how you feel restaurants overall are currently doing with this challenge.
Sure. It's certainly still a challenge. I would argue, I think there's a piece of it that feels better because we're just so damn used to it at this point. And then there's another piece of it that actually is improving, although incrementally. And that's mainly worker availability. Hiring teammates is harder than it's ever been. And it's not just the retail or restaurant side. I mean, we could be producing more beverage for distribution and hitting our numbers better if we had more teammates at the brewery as well. So much so that we've invested heavily into new equipment, bringing in robotics even to, replace the need for 7 people to make mix packs. We've now got a few people plus robots, and we move a lot faster. So, at the end of the day, it's no different in the restaurant industry, except for that you can't really automate as much as you can on the manufacturing side. So, I know we're all frustrated with QR codes and ordering through your phone and those types of things, but the fact remains that there's just not a person to assign to every limited group of tables to, cater to every need, unfortunately. We have focused on allowing, what's different about us is we don't expect the QR code to give you good service. We expect the QR code to take certain functions away from the server so that the server can provide excellent customer service. And what I mean by that is you place your own order, you build your burger, you say, hey, I want half pepperoni and half chicken on the pizza. Your server makes sure that it comes out quick, hot, as you ordered it. Make sure your drinks are filled. Make sure you have plates, utensils, all the things that are necessary for you to have a good dining experience, and be there to offer advice on beer or a cocktail or, any questions you may have. But taking out that very functionary task of writing down your order and then going to input it into a machine. Now, I'm not saying one is better necessarily than the other. I admittedly prefer a paper menu and prefer to talk to someone. But at the same time, I do understand the shortage that doesn't allow us to be able to deliver that everywhere. All 4, soon to be 5, which is actually great that we're talking now instead of a couple of weeks ago when we were originally scheduled due to the Kaanapali announcement.
Yes.
But, we have 4 locations currently in Hawaii, and 3 are open 7 days a week, and 1 we can't because the west side of Maui is the hardest place right now, it seems, to hire and retain labor. I do think that will change for us. Admittedly, Kahana is an aging location for us that should have been remodeled several years ago. Actually, right at the beginning of COVID, we were supposed to, but we know why that didn't happen.
Yeah.
But, it is still a difficult side. I talk to restaurateurs on the west side all the time, and it's like, hey, what are you doing for labor? Or, hey, have you been able to find people? Or, this, that, the other thing. Or, even if you find it, it may not be in the time slots that you need it. So that's, like I said, where we've turned to any efficiency upgrades that we can make in terms of providing excellent service while taking some of the functionary tasks away, and really lean on each other as a team to support. So if someone's in the weeds, we expect our team to jump in and help them, because at some point you'll be in the weeds too and you'll need that help.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll tell you, we still have a lot of people in the weeds, and, hiring has been a challenge. Retaining employees, we've got a lot of people trying new industries that they haven't done before, and every business is desperate to have them try in the hopes that it might work out, but sometimes it doesn't work out, and so it's been an ongoing issue for many businesses, but we're working through it, and that's the best thing we can do.
Yeah.
The technology.
Well, beyond labor, we have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was say beyond labor, I know most people read a little bit at least and, hear about the prices, but, the costs that have gone up since COVID, during and since, it's just astronomical. I mean, certain groups in the food and beverage industry were certainly underpaid and needed a reset. I would say we've definitely gone past that of what's economically viable relative to food prices.
That's been a huge issue.
Huge issue. But then when you figure those wages, especially in the tipped employee side, there's just some some level of sanity that needs to come into that in the minimum wage and the relative tip credit is just, it's beyond disparate. And I think a more healthy tip credit is necessary, which would allow you to then help balance out the costs in the back of the house, of course. Because, let's face it, servers and bartenders, at least in our locations, are doing very, very well. And not to say that they don't deserve to be well paid, but they don't really rely on that from the hourly. They rely on that from the tips. And I would argue that the better we can take care to kind of spread that cost around a little bit, or spread those dollars around within the team, better service, better quality, leads to better tips, and then everybody wins. So, that's something that we're dealing with beyond that, the food costs, just importation or even purchasing of local products, as we do a lot of, the costs have just gone up tremendously. Beyond that, it's electric, gas, CO2, shipping, insurance, you name it. There's not a cost that hasn't gone up tremendously. And so that translates directly to, the cost of your burger. It's just, that's how it works. So, these are challenges that are very real. I think that we still haven't seen the full economic impact of, recovering from COVID and the closure of all the restaurants that will likely still close. I'm not saying it's going to be en masse, but there are many that are still on the rails right now. And let's face it, you're a restaurant owner. You've been, doing this for 10, 20 years. You come out of COVID and now you can't find employees, so you're working. I have friends literally that work 7 days a week, starting at 4 a.m. and hopefully they get to go home before the dinner shift, and running their businesses, cooking on the line, serving tables, and they're tired. And, you can't blame them when they're just like, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to cut and get out of this thing because I'm working myself to death. So, so I don't think we've seen it all, but, I think we still have some fleshing out to do for sure.
Yeah, I think that's very true. And for those who didn't, tell everybody about the Ka'anapali announcement.
Yeah, so, our partners at our Waikiki restaurant, Outrigger Hotels has purchased the Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, and they're going to be taking over operations there, renovating the hotel, doing a bunch of great things. But the Hui Hui restaurant, which is at Ka'anapali Beach Hotel, right on the beach, beautiful location, newly renovated as well, put a ton of capital into that location to make it what it is. But they've asked us to come in and operate the restaurant as a separate thing from the hotel. So we'll be operating that as a Maui Brewing Company restaurant later this summer. I believe we start operations there July 26th, I believe, is when we actually go in and, quote, open with some level of service. We will be doing some, phased renovations there in order to, make it, more on brand for Maui Brewing. And you'll be able to get the full host of craft Ohana products there. So, whether it be the Maui Brewing, Maui Hard Seltzer, Kupu Spirits, our whiskey and our gin, all the way through the Modern Times portfolio as well. So we're very excited to have that. Our home is the West Side originally, so we're super excited there. But I'm also
excited for you
to announce. Go ahead.
We're excited for you in the community. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, and I think we can bring what everybody loves about Kihei. We now have a place west side to be able to do those same things, and it's not only, of course, the great food and beer and service, but it's the outdoor activities that we host at Kihei. You have this huge outdoor adult and maybe kid playground, and I use that word very broadly, but to do events like PodFest we just had, or, hosting weddings and corporate events, I imagine doing mini beer festivals and chef pop-ups with, different eateries and our fellow restaurateurs around Island, to do these, really cool events, much like we do in Kihei. We'll have the Ka'anapali spot for, and now to be clear, we're not leaving Kahana. This is in addition to Kahana, so this will be number 5 in our restaurant group, Maui Brewing Restaurant Group, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the brewery. our partners on the restaurant group really put a ton of time in, far more than me, on the Kahanapali spot, and I'm really proud of what they've been able to accomplish there. But Kahana permits are in, and we purchased a building that used to be the old Outback. That is the old Outback. And when I say old Outback, I mean the old Outback, not the Lahaina Gateway one, the one next door to us in Kahana. So we have that corner, we're moving out of the corner into the building facing the highway. It's a slightly larger unit by about 30%. And permits are in for renovation there. So we'll be moving Maui Brewing Kahana into that location. And that one's really going to be, we're really going to focus on what made the corner there, what's so beloved about it for the community, and really kind of lean into that Brewco mentality and really deliver some really great value there. So we're really excited to be able to, start Kahanapali, but at the same time be renovating Kahana because we seem to like to pile work on ourselves. But that'll be really cool to have those two locations on the west side for sure.
That's so awesome. Well, I know we've run out of our time today, and I'm going to have you on again because I'd love to have you give us also some more of an economic outlook. But we are thrilled and excited about all of the opportunities that you have created and the expansion of my brewing company, as well as, creating your craft ohana to bring everything together, but also, expand and grow in different ways. And we just want to thank you for all of the great recognition you give to Maui in developing quality products and restaurant operations that make us all proud. So thank you so much for all you do and for being on the show today.
Oh, always. You can always count on me to support you. And, I got to say, I couldn't do anything I do without an amazing team and, frankly, a community that supports us so strongly. So thank you to everyone who's listening and to anyone who's ever picked up a can of Bikini Blonde Lager. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Garrett. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Aloha, Pam.
Thank you. Aloha. All right, I'd like to introduce our next guest. I think Gary will be connecting with him now, but it is Guy Harshman, and he has been in the islands for more than 20 years, 6 of those being on Maui, and the remainder being in Honolulu. He actually started in the fashion industry with Liberty House and has worked with both real estate and freight forwarding ever since. Guy currently services all islands with approved freight forwarders, handling Hawaii's needs for moving goods from the islands. And so Guy has been doing this work for a very long time, and we all know in business, and as we were just talking about with Garrett, with challenges with dealing with how we get our goods and services to the U.S. mainland, as well as how we get supplies and needed elements from the U.S. mainland to Hawaii. So this is such a key issue for all companies. We're always looking at what is that shipping cost, and what are some of the things that we can do to reduce it and expedite it. And so today, Guy's going to jump in and share a little bit about what's happening with his company, which is Approved Freight Forwarders. And let me see if Gary's got Guy on the line.
I can hear you. Thank you.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you for being on. So we were just talking about, how freight costs are higher, and one of the ways businesses can save time is looking at freight forwarding solutions. You folks, I know, really are excellent at coordinating shipments and maximizing the use of space and weight. Can you tell us a little bit about your end-to-end solutions to increase efficiencies and reduce weight costs?
Absolutely. So it's really a two-part solution, if you look at it. Our mainland-based team offers unbeatable trucking with lower warehousing costs. So consolidation can be done at our City of Industry location in California. Then the way to really beat the cost is with LCL, or limited container loads. So that means you're sharing a container and its costs with other people, so the burden isn't on just one person. I coordinate all of those pieces for you. So Pam, to break it down for you in layman's term, I always like to explain things like my grandmother can understand it. So if you're sending a crate and I'm sending a pallet, we're only paying for the amount of space and weight for the total container that we actually are taking up. So this, coupled with the fact that we ship twice a week to Hawaii, that goes, it gets your merchandise here quickly, and it's a cost saver.
I lost you guys. You ship twice to Hawaii and
twice a week. Yeah, we come in twice a week, and so it gets the stuff here quickly. It takes about 5 days to ship to the island, and it ends up being a cost saving when you do the LCL route.
That's so awesome. I know you have 5 terminals to get your freight from anywhere in Hawaii to the U.S. So can you give us some examples of how you're delivering some of the best-in-class service to Maui companies within the state and abroad?
Oh, absolutely. So we are asset-based. So what that means is we have our own warehouses and trucks on all islands here in Hawaii with our sister company, Royal Hawaiian Movers. So we employ locals. They know the island like the back of their hand. So that allows them to assess delivery challenges in advance. And our regular communication with the technology we have set up internally, we have communication from the time it's picked up to the time it's delivered in Maui.
Well, I just want to say to everybody, I'm sorry. I'm going to ask Guy to see if he can come back and talk more with us. It goes quickly, but we just want to thank Mokulele Airlines and wish everybody on behalf of the Maui Chamber of Commerce to have a beautiful Maui day. And we hope you'll tune in next Tuesday. Aloha.